And now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Public Radio Show. Okay, and today we've had our scouts searching the railroad and bus stations around New York for victims of misfortune. And several of them here have been selected to receive assistance from our generous Bob and Ray organization. Bob, I see you have one of those miserable creatures there at the microphone with you right now.
Yeah, I do, Ray. This pathetic specimen is E.L. Werberly of Niles, Michigan, if I read that correctly.
Yes, Niles, Michigan.
And you state that you came to New York for treatment of a rare illness, is that right?
Yes, that's right. See, my hair began falling out about 2 months ago, and the diagnosis has now been confirmed that I've got Dutch elm disease.
Well, I'm told that's quite unusual among humans and would be hard to treat in a community as small as Niles, Michigan.
Well, we've got a tree surgeon there, but all he could suggest was sawing off a few of my limbs to see if the condition would clear up. Of course, I'd prefer not to have that done.
Well, don't you think it might be better than going around with that forestry department sign nailed to your shirt?
Well, I'm beginning to think it might. I'm not contagious to humans. But here in New York, the rare disease specialists all seem to have their offices close to Central Park.
Yes, they do.
And the police won't let me go into the neighborhood because I might kill the trees.
Well, you've certainly become one of society's outcasts, and to cheer you up, our generous Bob and Ray organization wants you to have this fine 3-speed hairdryer. Use it in good health, sir.
Are you trying to be funny?
No.
I mean, my condition has let me bald as an egg, and you give me a hairdryer.
Just use it in good health. That's least we can do. Our final victim of misfortune is Mrs. Emma Grulock of Newport, Kentucky. And according to your card, you're trying to sell peanut brittle from door to door here in New York to raise money for new playground equipment in your poverty-stricken little town. Is that right?
Well, actually, Newport's not poverty-stricken by any means.
No?
It's just that I've worked the old peanut brittle scam there before, and besides, I figure it will take months for the New York Police Bunko Squad to discover that I'm not sending any of the loot back home to buy playground equipment.
And in the meantime, of course, you'll be trotting the streets of a strange city in all kinds of weather, trying to raise a few paltry dollars for your favorite charitable cause. Our hats are off to you, ma'am, and from our generous Bob and Ray organization, a lovely set of matched dueling pistols just for you. We have your initials on them.
Well, that's just awful. If the fuzz spots me walking around with a gun in each hand, they'll nail me for something a lot worse than petty fraud.
No thanks are necessary, ma'am. It's just our way of paying tribute to your unselfish efforts. And now, back over to Ray at the main anchor desk. And now the Rotman Corporation, maker of fine buggy whips for more than 9 centuries, brings you The Orderlies, a dramatic behind-the-scenes glimpse of life in a big city hospital.
Orderly wine coop, report at once to Chief Orderly Snellwell. Report to Chief Orderly Snellwell.
Here I am, Chief Orderly Snellwell. I hope being summoned to your executive cubicle doesn't mean that I've somehow incurred your displeasure.
Wine coop, I think you're well aware that the mere sight of you incurs my displeasure. However, I try not to let personal feelings interfere with my administrative duties here in the big city hospital.
Oh, you administrate beautifully, sir, considering the awful cross you have to bear with people like me making you nauseated all the time.
It's not people like you, Wine Coop. It's you specifically.
Yes, Your Eminence. And I sure didn't mean to imply that anybody else on the staff even comes close to creating disgust the way I do.
All right, Wine Coop, you can stop polishing my shoes with the tip of your nose. I think you've made your groveling attitude quite clear now.
Well, it was only meant as a gesture of devotion, Chief Orderly Snellwell, but if it bugs you, I'll gladly return to my menial duties.
Not so fast, Wine Coop. There's still the matter of a very serious charge that one of my informants has brought against you.
Really, sir? I thought those finks were all on vacation this week.
That'll be quite enough of your insolence, Wine Coop. It'll only make things worse for you. Now, would you care to confirm or deny the report that you let a hospital visitor ride on one of the elevators that was clearly marked for staff use only?
Well, yeah, I think I did, but as you know, sir, we only have 4 elevators, and they're all marked for staff use only.
Are you trying to tell me that you assumed an error has been made in the posting of hospital regulations, so you just decided to ignore them?
Oh, no, sir. I'm convinced that all 4,000 of our regulations were composed by far wiser people than I, but the person I let on the elevator was a little old lady trying to visit her son on the 18th floor. If I'd made her walk upstairs, she might have collapsed.
I see. So you thoughtfully prevented her from collapsing, which also prevented her from spending at least 24 hours in the hospital's intensive care unit.
Gosh almighty, Chief Orderly Schnellwell, I didn't even stop to think that my simple kindness might cost the hospital hundreds of dollars in lost revenue.
Winecoop, failing to stop and think seems to be the outstanding feature of your career as an orderly. Was it your assumption that we force visitors to walk upstairs just for the fun of it?
Well, we do a lot of cruel things to people here just for the fun of it, so I thought it might be that way with making people walk upstairs, too. But I realize now I've been a silly little fool. Any rookie should have known that the elevator rule was for the financial benefit of the hospital, but that little old lady was just standing in the lobby whimpering, and I didn't have the backbone to deal with her. Just no good, that's all.
Now, Winecoop, there's no need to blubber. After all, we have scuffles with visitors every day who try to fight their way onto elevators. And I'm afraid a few of them actually make it, just because there weren't enough off-duty orderlies who volunteered to police the lobby.
You know, I think I'm getting the message that there might still be a way I could atone for my terrible blunder, sir. And I just want you to know that I'm going down to that lobby as soon as I get off duty and defend those elevators against the general public with my life. The more old and feeble an enemy is, the harder I'll hit him.
Winecoop, I sense a tone of ruthlessness creeping into your voice. That just could mean that you have what it takes to make a first-rate orderly after all. And the time may soon be at hand when I'll be proud to call you a colleague.
And so, utilizing brutality learned through long experience, the hospital orderly contributes his bit to medical science. Join us next time when the Rotman Corporation, maker of fine buggy whips for more than 9 centuries, will bring you another dramatic story of the Orderlies.
Now, let me pass on a timely shopping reminder from the makers of Einbinder Flypaper. Friends, I'm sure you're all aware of the worldwide shortage of high-quality stickum that's used in the manufacture of flypaper. Prices have been skyrocketing by the embargo on glue from Cuba, the banning of exports from the Philippines, and the failure of this year's crop in Poland. And now that you're being urged to help fight inflation by limiting your purchases of flypaper, and you'll want to be sure you're getting the very best. So always ask for genuine Einbinder Flypaper, the brand you've gradually grown to trust over the course of 3 generations. Buy a small amount today. Several weeks ago, we designated East Padua, Montana as a Bob and Ray Honor City, and today we learned that the mayor of East Padua is in town, and we invited him here to chat with us and tell us what's happened since the city received that high honor. Welcome to our microphones, Mayor Ferdy Grosvenor.
Hello, Mr. Goulding.
Mayor Grosvenor, tell us what happened the day we named East Padua our honor city.
Well, there was a sign hung over the street that said, "Welcome to East Pardue, home of grated cheese." So we took her down right after we was named an honor city, and we had Luella Banks sew in a caret mark before the word home. Then she sewed in the word honored on the bias.
Making it read, "Welcome to East Padua, honored home of grated cheese."
Right. But it looked kind of makeshift, so we took it down and burned it.
I see.
There was a lot of cutting up the day of the honor, though. Doc Markwell, the druggist, filled a lot of prescriptions wrong. Jay Fitzer, the mechanic, went crazy with his grease gun, and he really had
Well, have any changes taken place, Mayor Grosvenor?
Yes, because of the publicity East Pardue got when it was named Honor City, a lot of industry was attracted to the area.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, Mr. Mayor. I'm sure it will herald a new era of unparalleled prosperity in East Pardue.
Yes, sir. 3 days after we got the honor, men and equipment came to East Pardue. Bulldozers were going day and night, power shovels operating on double shifts.
Well, I'm certainly glad there was so much activity.
It took them about 4 days to push East Pardue right off the map.
You mean East Pardue is gone, Mr. Mayor?
That's right. It was pushed in a big jumble, a heap, you might say, down near the banks of the Washington River.
And East Pardue?
It ain't called East Pardue anymore. It's called Fever City because of all the activity going on there.
Uh-huh.
You should see them steelworkers fling them hot rivets around.
Exciting.
A bunch of us down by the river got burned by them.
I'm sorry to hear that, sir.
Well, I just dropped by to tell you what a thrill it was to be named an honor city and a disaster area all in the same week.
Well, what do you call your little community down there by the banks of the Washington River, Mr.
Well,
Mayor?
we ain't decided really on a name yet, but we got it narrowed down to 2 choices.
Uh-huh.
Tent City or Hobo Town.
Well, when you decide, be sure to let us know so we can designate it a Bob and Ray Honor City
Oh, I
again.
don't think so. If you did, more industry might be attracted to the spot. It wouldn't take but a minute for a bulldozer to shove us in the drink.
I understand. Well, you tell all the folks out there not to be discouraged, Mr. Mayor. If they put their backs to it and build docking facilities for 30 or 40 boats, they'll have a marina.
I'll do that.
Thanks for coming by, sir.
Yes. Now, in the interest of good broadcasting, we have a reply to a recent Bob and Ray editorial in which we expressed the view that the New York City area law requiring leashes for dogs should be broadened to include cats, hamsters, and other pets. And here now to speak in response is Mr. Victor J. Bodenhamer of the National Society of Friends of the Four-Legged. Go right ahead, Mr. Bodenhamer.
Well, I certainly intend to. The attitude shown by you two birds toward my presence here today has been a humiliating experience.
Well, I'm sorry you feel that way, sir. Actually, we were just discussing our general reaction toward listeners who come here to present editorial rebuttals. And, of course, nothing we said was meant as a personal reflection on you.
What are you talking about? Your pal Fatso there called me a little shrimp. Now, that's about as personal as you can get, and I don't like it one bit.
I can understand that, but by the same token, you just referred to Ray as Fatso, and he has a legion of friends who only think of him as heavy set.
Yeah? Well, I got a legion of friends who only think of me as being petite or diminutive, but never a little shrimp.
Well, I'm sure you can
Well,
overlook...
excuse me, but if you'll allow me to finish making my point here.
All right.
I'm only 5'2".
Right.
But I'm very well proportioned, so that my small stature isn't even noticed unless I'm standing next to a normal person.
I hope you're not saying that you think of yourself as being abnormal just because of your diminutive stature.
No, not at all. That was just a Freudian slip. You see, I admit that I took quite a pushing around as a child because I was small, but now that I'm an adult, I have a legion of friends, as I mentioned a moment ago. Of course, you may not believe that.
No, I believe it. You seem like a decent enough person to me, and
Oh, thank you. That's the first nice thing anybody's said to me since I got here.
Well, I'm sorry if the members of our staff have shown hostility toward you, Mr. Bodenhamer. I guess they just act a little cold when anybody shows up to challenge one of our editorials.
Really, I thought they were being snippy toward me just because I'm short, you know?
No, not at all. I don't
Well, a lot
think
of people do, you know. They figure that a little twerp like me can't stand up to normal people, so they really let me have it, just to make themselves feel big and important, you know?
I can assure you, Mr. Bodenhamer, that our staff shows the same rotten attitude toward every guest who comes here to deliver an editorial reply, and we've had several who are well over 6 feet tall.
No
actually.
kidding.
Yeah.
Well, gee, you really made me feel a lot better by saying that. I guess I was just being overly, sensitive about my size.
Yeah, I think
guess.
it's only natural you would be. And as you said, you took quite a pummeling as a child because you were short, and the effects of an experience like that can last a lifetime.
Well, that's very true. But not many normal-sized people have the human compassion to understand that. I really enjoyed meeting you and having this little conversation.
Well, thank you. If there's anything we can do to
Well,
make
if you're ever out in East Islip, you can stop in for dinner. give me a call from the station. I'll come over and pick you up.
That's very kind of you, sir. But now, what about your editorial rebuttal?
Well, I don't believe there's anything else I need to add. So, well, thanks for everything. You've been a real peach of a guy, you know. Goodbye.
Bye. You've been listening to a reply to a recent Bob and Ray editorial on the subject of broadening New York's present leash law for dogs. Speaking was Mr. Victor L. Bodenhamer, the little shrimp who represents the National Society of Friends of the Four-Legged. Printed copies of this editorial. A rebuttal will not be available to the public, so don't ask for one, please.
Yes, especially for not writing in with... And now we journey again to Garish Summit and its unfolding story of intrigue among the socially prominent. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As our action begins, spineless young Rodney Murchfield is at his desk, making plans to regain Pamela's affections from his brother Caldwell. Suddenly, he's interrupted by the entrance of Wallace Jodenfuhr, the chief engineer of the Murchfield Lead Mining Company. Rodney glances up and speaks.
Come in and sit down, Jodenfuhr. I was just planning how I might regain Pamela's affections from my despised brother Caldwell.
Well, I'm afraid I can't help you with that, Mr. Birchfield. I'm a mining engineer. I didn't even take a course in personal relations at A&M.
Well, that's all right. I have other people on my payroll who can take care of Pamela. It's been your assignment to figure out why we've had so many customer complaints recently at Murchfield Lead.
Well, I've had the quality control department working on that problem day and night, Mr. M. They brought me some wonderful news.
Well, I don't see anything wonderful about delivering lead ingots that our customers can't melt down into satisfactory toy soldiers. Even the fishing sinkers made from our product don't sink right anymore.
Well, that's what I had the guys in quality control check out.
Oh?
And their study led to the wonderful news. It seems our recent lead shipments were unsatisfactory because they weren't lead. What we've been mining lately is pure silver.
Are you saying that our underground division moved from lead into a vein of silver without knowing it?
That's what happened, all right. It's so dark down there that everything looks pretty much like lead. But, do you realize how much more a ton of silver is worth?
No, I've always feared that reading the commodity prices in the paper might make me an uninteresting person. But I gather from your attitude that silver may be of more value than lead.
You'd better believe it. This is really the discovery of a lifetime.
Well, in that case, take an extra hour for lunch with full pay, Jodenfuhr. I want to phone my broker before this news leaks out and buy every available share of Murchfield stock. In the meantime, I suggest we keep this our little secret.
Rodney's financial dealings look terribly fishy, Bowden. Someone's bound to wonder why he suddenly sold his yacht and his Shetland pony to buy 300,000 shares of Murchfield Lead.
Well, of course, his yacht is really a converted aircraft carrier, Agatha, so speaking as your attorney, I don't think there'll be any question about how he raised the cash.
Well, that's not really the point. The company's profits are down, but Rodney's buying all the stock he can. So he must have guessed what we already knew, that they've struck silver in the South Tunnel.
I suspect you're right, Agatha, and it was pure chance that Chief Engineer Jodenfuhr called me with the news. For some reason, he'd gotten an extra hour for lunch, and he was calling up some old friends.
Well, see that the man is fired for goofing off to make personal calls, and then buy as much Murchfield stock for my own account as you can get your hands on.
Very well, Agatha, but I'm not sure that's a good idea. It's against the law for corporate officials to buy company stock when they have inside information like this. I just hope the authorities never find out what you're doing.
So, how do I give you my evidence, Federal Prosecutor Lurtle? Just speak into this microphone?
That's right. You've already said that your name is Caldwell Murchfield and that you're related to those you're tattling on.
Well, I don't think of it as tattling. It's just being a good citizen. What would you do if you learned that your mother and brother were both illegally using secret information to clean up on the stock market?
Well, I don't know, but I probably wouldn't send them to jail. Of course, I wouldn't have anything to gain if I did, but All you need to do is to get your relatives in the slammer, and you'll become president of a $5 billion company. Congratulations, Fink.
Will Caldwell succeed in taking over Birchfield Lead by putting Rodney and Agatha behind bars? Can Chief Engineer Yodenfuhr succeed in finding a new job with nothing but a letter of reference from a convict? And what about Rodney's secretary, who may have overheard everything? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we hear the judge say,
I'm dismissing the case. This stuff turned out to be lead after all.
That's next week when we resume our endless story of intrigue on Garish Summit. Well, now we invite you to join us again for the Bob and Ray Public Service feature, Chatting with Dr. Chesney. Now, this is the portion of the program where we invite all of our disturbed listeners to call in and receive some expert advice from the noted psychologist, Dr. Merton Chesney. And, Doctor, I can't tell you how happy we are to have you with us again.
Really? I find it interesting that you claim to be happy when you're not exhibiting any of the usual outward signs of joy. Would you care to think about that for a moment?
Well, I don't really need to think about it. When I said I was happy to have you here, it was no big deal. I just said it to try to make you feel welcome.
Well, I assumed as much. And do you know how the rage builds up inside every time you say something just to please another person?
I assure you there's no rage building up inside me, Doctor. Now, if we could just move along
You're clenching your fists and your face is flushed. I'm afraid those are clear signs of suppressed anger.
Hey, knock it off, will you? Take the first call.
All right. If you don't want to become a well-adjusted person, that's your business. I'll just pick up line 1 here. Hello, you're on the air with Dr. Chesney.
Hello? I live in a large city in Pennsylvania, and I'm afraid to go out and shop in my neighborhood store.
Oh, yes, that's agoraphobia.
No, it's Pittsburgh. Well, I had the same problem when I lived in Cincinnati. So I don't think that's the cause of it.
No, I'm sure it's a fear that follows you wherever you go. And I suppose this feeling you get in stores is a panic that you may faint or even have a seizure.
Well, it's panic, all right, but not like that.
Well, suppose you describe exactly what happens, no matter how bizarre it may sound.
Well, see, I'll be pushing my cart down an aisle, perfectly natural, stuffing things in my pockets and under my coat. And then I'll see the store manager watching me and starting to reach for the phone. And out of nowhere, I get this scary feeling that I'm going to be locked up.
Well, then, as you may have guessed, it's claustrophobia.
Maybe you're right. But the Pirates play here, so I always assumed it was Pittsburgh.
Well, I'm sure the insight you've gained from our little chat will help you work that out. And let's move on to another caller in need. Hello, you're on the air with Dr. Chesney.
Oh, I'm so glad I got through to you, Doctor. I have a terrible problem with sneezing fits every year, and my family physician says they're caused by my emotions.
I assume he didn't make that diagnosis until he'd ruled out allergies.
Oh, I've been through every kind of test, and then I had the cat's fur shaved off, and then I even had my husband take the feather out of his hatband. Nothing helped. I'm just a wreck.
Well, a change of scenery is often helpful in cases of hysteria like yours. Maybe an ocean cruise or something of that sort.
Well, I just can't pick up and leave on a cruise. We have 500 acres of ragweed here in the farm to be harvested.
Well, I'm sure you could find a hired hand in your local yellow pages to help with that, but giving business advice is not the job of a psychologist, so I'll have to move on to another caller. Hello, you're on the air with Dr. Chesney.
Hello. I'm a 43-year-old tradesperson who tends to have a lot of hallucinations. That's why it's hard for me to tell whether the people who are holding me hostage in this old sawmill are real or just figments of my imagination.
Well, a chemical imbalance in the brain can sometimes make imaginary events seem very real.
Yeah, that's what I kept telling myself the whole first week. But then one of the guys hit me on the head and I got a big bump. That's when I decided maybe it was really happening.
No, let me assure you that The body responds to messages received through the nerve system, so if you thought you'd actually been struck, it's merely a case...
Look, one of them just called me using the phone. Now I'm in touch for sure.
No, I don't think so. See, putting an element of danger into one's fantasy is just a way of punishing yourself for some imaginary wrong you committed in childhood. You can see that, can't you? I'm sure. Hello? Hello? Well, apparently he isn't motivated to continue his treatment just now. So I'll be signing off by saying this is Dr. Merton Chesney, wishing you all good luck and good emotional stability.
And now, Dining Out with Bob and Ray, the informative feature that helps guide you to some of the lesser-known but truly outstanding gourmet restaurants around New York and around the world. Well, Bob, I believe your adventure in dining this week took you to one of those quaint little sidewalk cafes up in the Central Park area.
Yes, it did, Ray. I'd heard a great deal about the specialties at Bernie's Pushcart on the Green. And I finally was fortunate enough to locate it the other day as it was moving north near 85th Street.
Well, I assume then from what you're saying that Bernie's Pushcart on the Green doesn't stay in one location the way most restaurants do.
No, I think it's unique among gourmet restaurants in that one respect. Bernie, my dining host, told me that he ranges from Central Park south clear up to the mid-'80s, but his regular clientele is familiar with his route, so they plan their lunch hours for times when they know he'll be in the neighborhood.
Well, moving around as he does, I don't imagine that Bernie's able to provide too much in the way of atmosphere or that impeccable table service that we associate with many of the finer restaurants.
No, as the name implies, Bernie's Pushcart on the Green is just a pushcart on the green, but I would say that the wide range of offerings from the menu more than makes up for the lack of atmosphere and service. I had the number 2 combination. That's a hot dog with pickle relish. Bernie also offers his famous hot dog with mustard, hot dog with ketchup, or hot dog Chateaubriand. That's served for 2 with sauerkraut.
Well, I suppose you can also get a plain hot dog with nothing on it if you prefer.
No, I don't think you can. But with all the succulent relishes offered by Bernie, I don't imagine the absence of a plain hot dog from the menu will bother anybody. Only word of caution I might offer is that it's still a little too early in the season to enjoy an evening dinner at Bernie's. It gets chilly in the park after the sun goes down. Of course, all the muggers and the weirdos come out after dark and don't really want to be there.
From the way you've described Bernie's Pushcart on the Green, I think that luncheon would be the best meal to enjoy there, at least until we're well into spring.
Now I know we both have plans for dining out in the week ahead as we search for more little-known but truly fine restaurants around town. Well, if we had an old clock on the wall, I think it would be telling us that we've got to get out of here for this meeting of the Bob and Ray Public Radio Show.
It was produced for the Radio Foundation by Larry Josephson, who's not at all sure an educated consumer is his best customer.
Marjorie Van Halderen was associate producer, technical director Malcolm Addy, music by Paul Taubman, who takes requests but hates it when they ask for valse chinoise.
Sound effects were by Al Schaefer, who stubbornly believes that butter is what they put on movie theater popcorn.
Engineers were Mike Moran and Joe Lopes, production assistants Diana Freed and Stuart Zagnett.
Funding for the program by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Through NPR's Satellite Program Development Fund.
And now this is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumb.
For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. That's Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.